Frozen Music is a video series from ABB presenting unique building projects and the architects behind them to a global community. Follow us around the world.
Welcome back, and now we're going to hear about the winner of the leisure-led development category, which is the Douro Winery in, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the Portuguese, I'm afraid, but in Portugal, and to tell us about it, the architect Atelier Sergio Rebelo. So please start the presentation.
Hi, hello. Before anything else, I just want to let you know that it is a true honor to be presenting to this jury. I've been following everyone's work for many years, and it's really a pleasure to present this project to you. My name is Sergio Rebelo. I am the founder of Atelier Sergio Rebelo, and I founded this studio after 10 years of working in an international practice called Fernando Romero Enterprise, which I've been the design director. We've been working in Porto since early 2018, and we're now a team of 10 people here in the studio. Our studio is located in Porto, and Porto is based by the Douro River. The city has always evolved with this connection between the two margins, but also with the interior of the country and an area that is being protected by UNESCO. This area has been the second designated wine region in the world, and the site is located in almost the epicenter of this incredible landscape. The introduction to the site is extremely relevant because of its historical heritage. This landscape has been carved since the Roman Empire occupation. So through millennia, this landscape has been carved by hand and formalized through wine cultivation. It's a location that has a lot of material qualities, and it's a landscape that changes a lot throughout the whole year. So to build a project in a moment where even the economy is changing in this area from agricultural into tourism, and that tourism and agriculture value each other, it is a project that carries a lot of responsibility. This is the site where we are intervening. The site is of astonishing beauty, and it is characterized by its topography, which has an area that is concave and an area that is convex. The program of this project it reflects exactly this economical transition moment, where there is a location for a winery and a hotel, and they basically allow people to experience the site, and also it's a project where placemaking becomes very central in the philosophy of the project. So we have located the winery in the concave area to use the thermal mass of the earth to stabilize the temperature. There is a very wide range of temperature in this site that ranges from -5 in the winter to 45 Celsius degrees in the summer. So the use of the land becomes quite important in terms of an intelligent use of electricity for climatization. The hotel is located in a convex area, so we can open the views through the bedrooms. Today there exists a very small chapel. These chapels are quite important because they punctuate Douro in a very poetic way. So in a way, it kind of helps to organize the way we have laid out the hotel. So on the left, we have the project for the winery. then there is a path. We enter through the, let's say, the left side, a path that leads from the winery to the hotel. There is also like a little agricultural section, which we are renovating as well, because these quintas in the Douro, they were very autonomous in terms of its independence for food and vegetables. Introducing the winery, the idea is that we could create, let's say, an iconic structure, something that will become the face of the project, that is very embedded in the history of the site. These are the caves which are built in next to Porto, where the port wine that is produced in this region was stored. So they are basically wood structures that are very, very long, and they repeat as much as they can through the territory. These caves have also been like that, so they are very long buildings with a repetition of wood structures. Structures like this. So we wanted to do a building that is very seamless with the landscape. So it uses the geometry of the steps that were created since the time of the Roman Empire and the occupation in the 13th, 14th, and mainly 19th century, which were the centuries where this region developed the most. And basically by blending these two elements, we created something that is unique, something that is developed by current technologies, that is also very intelligent in the use of natural resources, but most of all, it's very integrated with the landscape. The idea is that this is built in wood structure in the interior, and the exterior it's made with GRC panels that are pigmented with the same color of the walls, the existing walls, so that from day one it's perfectly integrated with the landscape. Here we also see the views from the main facade, which faces north, so it doesn't have so much insulation. So the building is, most of it is carved into the ground. So that allows us to keep a very stable temperature between 14 and 16 degrees throughout all the year. And it works as traditionally wineries work in the Douro Valley, where the grapes arrive from the highest level. They are then dropped into an area where the wine ferments, and it's the viniculture room. And then the wine goes through gravity into a main hall where it ages. And then it's bottled and leaves the winery for distribution. The tourists will arrive in exactly the opposite direction, so from bottom up. They will arrive into a cave-like shop. Then from that cave-like shop, they will arrive to a point where they have either the wine tasting area facing the aging hall, or they can also access an event space that will be an outdoor event space in this platform on the right. There is this bridge that connects the two parts, so production and tourists, that will allow for people to explain how the winery works without interfering in this wine process. Here we see that in the floor plan, basically there is an extreme continuity between all these different sections, and that the geometry kind of blends with the steps from the let's say the steps that the vineyards have been the way they've been formalized throughout all these centuries. In section, we can see that one part of the building that is underground is built in concrete, very mineral, and that the part that is outside is built in wood and GRC. So that from even in the interior, we have exactly this perception of how the building is placed on the site. We also have this image of the very repeated structures that in a way celebrate the history of vernacular and historical wineries in the area. Here this is a picture that was taken this week. The winery has started construction a month ago, and we finally laid out the foundations. The hotel sits at the same level, but develops from one line that basically defines a podium for the chapel, and it's the difference between that line and the topography that allows us to place the different parts of the program. This is an image with this group of buildings, and it's facing the area where we come in. So we have a reception in the left side. We have two buildings that create a corridor that basically changes the scale or the monumental scale of the landscape into something that is much smaller and more domestic. And then after this path, there is a sequence of patios that lead into a courtyard. This courtyard is inspired by the monasteries of Portugal. There are a lot of them since the 13th century that they exist until the 18th century. And these monasteries, they have these spaces for introspection, for reflection, for meditation. They kind of inherited this Islamic courtyards in terms of its elements, the water, the vegetation, the shadow. So it's something that we wanted to bring into our project as well. So this project is interpreted almost like a retreat. And the idea that we have an internal space allows us to create some contrast and some framing of the landscape again and enjoy it again after the arrival into the hotel. The building is fragmented, as traditionally are the quintas in the Douro Valley. Our site is facing these very traditional quintas, so in a way it creates kind of a contrast between the two margins where we have something contemporary and something very historical. Here we see how the hotel sits into the landscape. So these different buildings are connected through a roof, a translucent roof that also evokes wine production and wine culture, and with a swimming pool facing the west side. Sorry, here another view of how the building sits in the corner around this courtyard with the chapel sitting on top. And basically this building is organized through this main patio. We have rooms facing east and rooms facing west. The restaurant is in the corner, and it allows to have 270-degree views. And then we have the common spaces with the reception, a social room, and a spa. In between these buildings, we have created these patios where we frame different parts of the landscape, and we also create different experiences. The Douro is something very sensorial, something very about the taste, the smell. So we have introduced patios, each one with different identity, where the elements are also very present. This is the reception patio, where we've introduced the element of fire. And this is actually the frame of the existing view. So I'll go through the floor plans very quickly since we're short in time. But here another view of how this roof blends with the existing landscape. And we are using some vegetation, actually vineyards, to cover the roof, which will allow the building to have a lot of light during the summer, but a lot of light during the winter, but a lot of shadow during the summer as well. And it blends architecture with vegetation. Here is the experience of the bedrooms. They are these very horizontal views in order to integrate the landscape into the interior.
Sorry, I think we're going to have to stop because we do need to have some time for questions, please. So
okay, I'm just finished. So this is the restaurant, and finally the view of the building sinking into this location.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's go straight into questions. Mariana, would you like to start?
Yes, I love the way it's integrated into the topography and into the culture of winemaking, but still pointing towards the future with a more sophisticated blending. I don't know. I don't know the reason of why so many cuts and turns in the hotel building, because like the way you explained and all the the program seems to be, it could have been something very clear and very dramatic in a way, very simple, like all the buildings. I understand the need or the desire for the patios and the view framing, but I don't understand why the little cuts and the little, for me, it disturbs a bit the simplicity of your gesture, which is beautiful.
Thank you. One thing that was very important for us was this idea of narrative. The Douro is a place full of history, but to get to the site, you go through almost 2 hours where you're seeing the landscape very present. So the idea of creating kind of episodes, little chapters, when you go through the site and you go through the building, for us was extremely important. I think there is a very big continuity in terms of the materiality and of the experiences we go through from the winery into the hotel. But we felt that there was the need of like domesticating this landscape into something that is more experiential and something that becomes very human-centric. So the winery, it's, let's say, as a piazza with a welcoming place. A lot of people only go to the winery and leave, but the people that stay, they will have to go through another path. And then this path basically starts narrowing down and becoming this smaller scale, more welcoming, where then it will access to a sequence of spaces before they go into the room. So the sequence of spaces, like they are going to the reception. There is a formality that exists in this region and also in Porto, which is to give a port of honor. So the port of honor will happen in the that fire courtyard, and then people will go into the room and eventually into the restaurant. The cloister.
I'm going to have to bring the other jurors in here, please. Peter, would you like to ask a question?
Of course.
I think Mariana hit the nail on the head. I had exactly the same reaction. I feel that the winery is both consequent and elegant. I feel that the hotel involves much more contrivance, and then one begins to ask questions: does element X or element Y really have to do as much as it's trying hard to do? But the winery is I think, superb.
Anchor.
No, I'll pass. I think that's not a significant question.
All right. Well, Sergio, would you like to respond to Peter and really following on from Mariana?
Sorry, I'm not sure if I understood the question very well.
It's the
question is really to do with the consequentiality of the hotel as opposed to the obvious consequentiality of the winery.
Of the winery, yes, of course. So when we were,
it's almost as if they were designed by different designers. It's actually, at first sight, you think it's all the same ilk, but actually the attitude is very different, it seems to me.
Yes, okay, now I understood the question, I'm sorry. So the winery, by its program, it's a building that has a very large scale. We have almost 10 meters in the interior of the aging hall, and this building needed to be kind of domesticated. We always understood the winery, but we also have more freedom to design it, more like as a very iconic thing, more like a landmark. The hotel on its end is located in an area where we have a very little chapel, and this chapel is actually giving the name of this property. So we always saw the hotel not much with the need to become an architectural landmark, but more like a succession of experiences. So it's something more surgical, where these experiences follow a sequence, and the building is actually designed around the way we move through the site. I think this is quite complex to explain in just 10 minutes and also through images. But when you visit the site and you walk through the site, this becomes very, very obvious, because the scale becomes much smaller. the scale more domesticated, and each one of these spaces actually they gain kind of a personality. So in a way, maybe it seems complex when I try to explain things in general terms, but when you go through the site, the Douro already has these characteristics where are these micro spaces that become elements of a broader story.
I just want to leave on one thought, I'm afraid, that we'll have to leave it hanging, but it seems to me that the winery is the process of what happens in the winery is very close to the landscape, because the landscape is developed for creating wine, and the end process of that happens in the winery, where the landscape is not created for accommodating people, and that may be why the hotel is a slightly more awkward program to put in there. But thank you very much for presenting that. We're now going to have a break, which in London at least is lunchtime. It's going to be an hour, and then we'll come back and hear our final presentations of winners of future project categories. Thank you again to the jury, thank you to the presenters, and thank you to all of you for watching, and we will see you in just under an hour.